Hello, 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 family. This is Bailey reaching out to you guys. I had a series of thoughts that I wanted to share with you today, and please excuse my squeaky chair. I've found a chair in my garage that I really enjoy sitting in. However, it is extremely squeaky. So if you do hear the squeaky in the background, it is just my chair or me readjusting myself. But I do just want to say that I wanted to hop on today to share with you all some streams of thought, some downloads, some things that I'm witnessing in our environment. And I think that it's worth speaking on, especially as a coach, when it comes down to focusing on helping my clients build confidence, self esteem, awareness, and actually being able to have grace with yourself and forgiveness in yourself is so worthwhile to take a moment and take a beat. And I do think that some of these downloads that I've received just from my own observation of our current world and our current society, as well as some of the experiences that I've had personally that I've had shared with me, that it's okay that I've gotten the permission to share with you all publicly, as well as just overall observations that I'm making is worthwhile. So, I am excited to hop in the conversation with you all. Once again, this is Coach Bailey, and welcome to our talk. So, today's topic, we will be focusing on getting to know yourself. I do believe that this is relevant no matter what time period we're in, what time period you're in when it comes down to just your personal life and development, as well as just overall considering who you are, who you have been, and who you want to be. So, some of the main topics that I will be touching on is in light of the pandemic for sure. I do believe in our current society, before the pandemic happened, there were structures and systems that implied different levels of success. There were structures that told us exactly what to pursue, when to pursue it, how to pursue it, and the why was always to be better than the generation before you or to accomplish things, to gain personal possessions, material possessions, as well as to create yourself a version of freedom or the quote unquote American dream that you've always been interested in. Now, though those things are practical and still applicable to our current world and our current society, I do believe that the pandemic has changed us globally, on a systematic level, on a personal level, as well as on a community level. So I do think that it's important to take a moment to consider these things. When we think about the pandemic, a lot happened during that time. A lot of things were, ideas were brought up that caused us to question, why did we as a people function in a system that sometimes was beneficial, sometimes wasn't beneficial? Or why did we as a people approach certain things from a specific perspective? As well as the pandemic also ushered in a systematic abolition or or opportunity that allow for our society to grow and change in different ways. And none of this is either good or bad. There's no such thing in this context as good or bad or wrong or right. It just is. So approaching these ideas from that perspective, some of the things that are clear to point out is that first, the system that existed beforehand, and when I say system, what I mean is the idea of climbing the corporate ladder, or the idea of having a white picket fence, a spouse, two kids, and a dog, a golden retriever. Um, along with other ideas that come to mind when it comes down to some of those monumental goals that our society imposed on us or displayed to us or even modeled to us in the past. Some of those things became, you'll have to excuse my my thing. Yes, we're still in the call. Stay in the call. Super side note. I'm doing it this way because this is what my system allows. So I do thank you for your grace and your time. But every now and then you will see a little pop up that will pop up just because this is the best method that I could utilize to get this message out. So it isn't as curated as I would like it to be, but I'm very much excited to share with you this message because I do think that it's meaningful to you or to someone that you know and could actually make a good impact on your perception and your perspectives. So every now and then you will see that pop up. So my apologies. But going back to what I was saying, and it's not that the system specifically was broken or, like I said, wrong or right. It just was what it was. But with the pandemic came fear, came opportunity, came time. A lot of people had time that they never had before to just sit with themselves and sit and consider themselves and what they valued, what was important, what was done intentionally or not intentionally to get them to where they were. People had the opportunity to consider their hobbies. Some people got back into hobbies that they were very interested in before life got busy, whereas some people got an opportunity to learn new things that they never got a chance to consider. I also believe that the pandemic brought in a different idea of what community is and what community could look like. Lastly, the pandemic was a time where our systems were shifting. So I do believe on a global scale, whether you're looking at just in your own community, in your state, in your providence, in your country, and then, of course, globally, the pandemic ushered in new tech. The pandemic ushered in a new way of working. There was, of course, remote work beforehand, but the pandemic showed that remote work is more practical than what the structures beforehand said could be possible. There is also a new ideology of how we present ourselves to the world. I know personally in my own world, I felt like my social media platforms did a complete 180 change. I'm I don't want to say necessarily I'm part of an older generation, but I'm older than some and younger than others. And I remember a time where social media was simply kind of like a personal scrapbook that individuals had that you could publicly share with your audience, whether that be, people that you work with, people that you went to school with, people that you met in your community. However, social media became a way to participate in activism. It also became our new way to receive advertisement and be sold product too. Whereas beforehand, yes, people used to sell things on social media or recommend things, but it was always kind of like a second tier component to social media. It was never the main thing. Whereas during the pandemic, that became the main thing. I do feel like though it existed beforehand, the subscription model became very prominent during the pandemic. And then, of course, here we are in our post pandemic world where a lot of people are still picking up the pieces. I always consider the fact that there were so many businesses that existed prior to and during the pandemic that no longer exist now, that had to shut down or pivot or relocate. The same with people. Certain people made big moves during the pandemic, whether it was like a locational move or they moved around in their career, but now they are returning back to what is familiar or what is more in alignment with who they are. And to consider these things on a macro level, but then to also consider them on a micro level, a more individualized level, is essential when it comes down to getting to know yourself. I think that our society does a really good job with having people brush over their emotions when you're feeling feelings, when you're having thoughts. I think our society, at least in the westernized world, has done a really good job. And to me, it's not good as in positive, but good as in effective. So I guess the better word would be effectively taught us as civilians that our feelings, thoughts, ideas just need to be brushed over. And I ask that you take this time to pull back the rug, pull the rug back, and see exactly what's going on underneath there, you know? So during this time, I do ask that in order to pull back the rug, because it is difficult, I do think that it is a challenge for most to take that time to self reflect, to identify the things that you want, need, desire. And also is really challenging because sometimes we do have to grieve the ideas, the concept of self, the dreams that we once had that are currently or possibly not possible, or something that we have to postpone because we did expect for it to come now, but unfortunately, because of our current state of being, we will have to postpone it. And regardless of how capable you are or how possible it is, there is a grieving moment in it. And I do believe that sometimes we do not want to go through the process of grief, which is understandable. No one does. No one wants to grieve anything there, any type of loss or disadvantage or setback. But I do call that in this moment, part of getting to know yourself is realizing who you are, who you were, and who you want to be. So, in line with who you were prior to the pandemic, compare that to who you were during the pandemic. And then also have like a third line of who you want to be. I do want to challenge you to know and understand that you are capable of great things. You are capable of being whoever you want to be, whoever you perceive yourself as being, and whoever you desire to be. So there's no such thing as limitations, there's no such thing as facades in this realm. But what I am calling for you to understand is that you have changed. We all have changed as a society, but more importantly, as an individual as well. I believe that taking a moment to yourself and actually reflecting on that is essential and part of becoming the person that you want to be. But more importantly, it's important to reflect on who you are now, the values that you have now, and what's relevant and important to yourself now. So, part of your assignment today would be to take out a piece of paper or to jot down in your journal or even make a mood board. I think sometimes people do enjoy seeing it visually versus having to write it out. Um, I also think that sitting with yourself and just kind of meditating to yourself and considering who am I now? What has changed about me? What parts of me do I really get excited about? What parts of me kind of make me a little bit resistant? And why am I resistant to those parts? I believe that we do ourselves a disservice when we say things like, I just want to be successful. Because what is success? It's such a vague and absolutely non specific term. You have to sit and think to yourself, what does success look like for me? For some people, success looks like time freedom, not being able to, not necessarily worrying about clocking in at a specific place at a specific time. Um, some people, success looks like being able to cover financially all of your needs and wants. Success could look like having a name in every household. that believes in you and believes in your message. So it's really important that we take the time to actually get to know ourselves and know exactly what it is that we aspire to, we dream of, and we have as goals. I do believe that whatever your final dream is will inspire your goals, will inspire the steps that you take, and will inspire the circumstances and surroundings you find yourself in. So, going back to an example of what this could possibly look like. So, let's say that before the pandemic happened, aka life prior the pandemic, you wanted to be successful. You defined success as climbing up the corporate ladder, getting that C-suite position, having the latest fashion clothes, jewelry, vehicles, etc. Maybe you saw yourself living in New York, or you saw yourself living in Montreal, or you see yourself living in a big city that, or Japan, or Hong Kong, or any big city that requires a lot of activity, a lot of ambition, a lot of grit in order to be successful. However, the pandemic happened, and then you were forced to be at home. And at that moment, you possibly grieved what was possible because now you're not able to travel for work anymore. Now you're not able to close the deals that you possibly had or there was a potential to have. And in this moment, you realize to keep yourself from going absolutely crazy and bonkers and self exploding, you ventured into a hobby that you once had when you were a child. You ventured into playing the piano. This is something that you did begrudgingly because possibly your parents forced you to do it as a child, but you did find solace in doing it when you were in those moments. So, as an adult, you return back to that and you realize during the pandemic that this is something that actually is bringing you fulfillment, that you're finding joy in this. You find yourself going out to different events, whether they included social distancing or not, and you're talking to other artists who love music, that love being creative, that love having an expression of creativity that they could put out into the world. And now you found yourself a collective of individuals who are in alignment with you. Maybe during this time you realize that your heart isn't beating as fast as it used to when you were working in that corporate setting. Maybe you realize that you're actually able to get 8 hours of sleep, whereas before the pandemic, you were constantly sleeping for anywhere between 4 to 6 hours per day. You realize that waking up, you're not filled with anxiety when you check your emails or you check your social platforms because now your emails aren't inundated with random messages from corporate that have harsh and strict deadlines and expectations. Now your emails are newsletters from your local pub that you visit, or it's an email from a friend that's checking in on you. Your emails and your messages, whether it's text messages or WhatsApp, are filled with love and compassion versus deadlines and, like I said earlier, random expectations that may be total left field expectations. It's like this isn't even possible. You're asking me to get X project done with a very strict deadline. It's not possible. You don't find yourself arguing with these people anymore. And you say to yourself, this is really cool and I'm really excited about what my life has to offer me. So, in this moment of creation, as we move out of the pandemic, let's say, I forget when they said the quote unquote pandemic was over, because currently people can still catch COVID. So, I think the pandemic was over in like 2024, 2025. I'm not for sure what deadline people are saying. But let's just say it's 2025 now. And, you know, you found yourself, you're not working in corporate like you were beforehand, but you found yourself a gig that makes sense for you. You're working a random job. I don't know. It could be at the bookstore, at the craft store, or at the coffee shop, whatever the job is to make sure that you're paying bills. You're working there and you realize that the demand that you had beforehand isn't as intense, but you're still able to satisfy your responsibilities and your financial needs. In addition to that, you do realize that, hey, this life is more peaceful. And sure, it doesn't come with the supposed glitz and glamour that moving into a C suite offered, but it comes with something that's more valuable, which is peace of mind, integrity, self respect, self care, and self love, which is more valuable than having your name plastered onto a cubicle somewhere or onto the sweet C suite somewhere. So for you, this may be more valuable. And this is part of getting to know yourself, knowing what is in alignment with what your soul desire, what your personhood desires, what your little self and your big self desires, and finding alignment in there. For other people, it might look different. It could look like I said beforehand, having more time freedom, having more time or ability or options to be with family, having the ability to not have to be micromanaged or having demands that are on you that are unrealistic and not practical. So it really just depends. And every weekend, you may find yourself hanging out with your jam session friends and playing piano and instruments. Maybe it looks like you going to your local library for a crochet session with a group of people. Maybe it looks like volunteering or just being able to take a walk around your neighborhood or around that park that you've been meaning to get to. So, peace of mind, alignment, and possibility all need to come into an alignment. And sometimes, because of the demands of the world, we never get a chance to actually sit down and consider what that could be. So, again, my assignment to you is to create some sort of chart or graph or Venn diagram or whatever makes the most sense for you. Sometimes people really enjoy writing it as a story, such as a fairy tale almost, or a autobiography of some sort. So that could look like, in practical sense, you saying, having a chapter or a few chapters about who you were beforehand and being completely honest with yourself because this is for you and your own growth and development. But also having separate chapters about what you experienced during the pandemic, your ups and your downs. And then having some time to consider what is possible for you, knowing who you are and what you've been through in the past, knowing that maybe your motivations have changed and being honest about that. Sometimes I think we are not okay with saying, hey, I don't care about this anymore, or I don't value this anymore. And it's okay. I'm telling you right now, as your coach, it is okay to change your motivations. It's okay to change your mind. There's no such thing as having a period at the end of what you dream of, what you aspire to be, what you're motivated by, and also being able to be honest and transparent with yourself. I'll give a personal example. I believe that prior to the pandemic, I had very specific outlines of what I considered friendship or what friendship looked like or what relationships look like. And not that they were wrong or right, they just were for that time in the timeline. However, in our current day, in our current society, I define friendship totally, I won't say totally, but I would define friendship as in a different way than what I did previously. I think some of those core values and pillars and expectations and responsibilities are still there when it comes down to how I practice friendship and how I receive friendship. But also, there are more elements to my friendships that are more looser or more stricter than what they were before. Um, there are some of my friendships that I have redefined as more expansive than what I would have beforehand, or more restricted than what I would have beforehand. And I'm okay with that because that's what makes the most sense for me and what is in the most alignment with myself. And I offer that to you because I think that when we don't have real life examples, it's sometimes challenging to realize what that is or why that is or why am I feeling this way or why do I have this gut reaction to this situation? And I think having those gut reactions is part of your compass, your spiritual and intuitive compass. So, as we wrap this session today, I ask that you evaluate, view, take some time with yourself and think, how have I changed? How have my motivations changed? How have my ideals changed? And how have my relationships changed? And consider those things when you are thinking about yourself, when you are thinking about how you want to progress in this life and in this world, how you want to grow, whether that's personally, professionally, in relationships. And also consider, is that in alignment with what my core is asking of me, what my heart is asking of me, and what my spirit is asking of me? Some of these revolutions or revelations will not be automatic. So have grace and have patience with yourself because sometimes you have to just present the question to the universe and you'll start getting feedback from your environment. Some of this may take for you to try some things that are different or new or out of your regular scheduled program. Say, for instance, you're a person that just goes to and from work every day. Some of these things may require that you take that Wednesday after work to go to that happy hour, to that one spot down the street that has a trivia night for happy hour, or the one spot that offers, I don't know, a card game or mahjong or something different than what your typical day looks like, but what's in alignment with yourself. I think sometimes when we get so wrapped up in our daily routine, it kind of puts us in like a robotic state of mind where we're not challenging ourselves to be our most authentic and our truest self. So consider some of the things you like. Start small. Say to yourself, what are the things that I like? Do I still like to go swimming? Do I still like to go running? Do I still like to hang out with these people? And allow yourself the transparency to say yes or no. When you're able to say yes or no, then you can make the augmentations from that point. So, say for instance, you don't like hanging out with these people anymore. They're boring. They're not as positive as you thought they were. They're not as rememberable. I think sometimes we have friendships or people have friendships that you realize this person is just saying the same exact thing. They're like a record on repeat. They're constantly repeating the same thing over and over and over again, and there's no growth in this person or growth in the conversation or growth in the relationship. And that's totally fine. I'm not saying dismiss that person or critique that person, but maybe you actually realize you don't like hanging out with this person anymore. So what does that mean for you? That could be totally fine. It probably just means that you don't hang out with this person anymore, or you only hang out with this person during certain days of the week or certain interactions, which is totally fine. But knowing that also could tell you, you know what? I really want to be around people who are progressing in their life, who have things going on, who um, is inspirational to me, or inspires me, or are building towards something. So you start to go into groups, societies, communities that actually call to that core value of yours. So this is just, like I said, a quick example. Maybe it's the opposite. You realize that you're hanging out with people and they constantly have problems. They constantly have things when it comes down to like big responsibilities. They have complaints. They essentially are bringing down your mood. And you're like, hey, I just want to be around more positive people that have like more fun things going on in their life. That could look like people that's going to fundraisers more often, or people that's remodeling their backyard, or people who's traveling more, whatever the case might be for you specifically, that allows for you to draw out your roadmap. Now, earlier I did mention having a compass and allowing your soul, your spirit, your heart to be your compass. But now you actually have to create yourself a roadmap. So that roadmap could look like I said earlier, you realizing that you don't want to hang out with these specific kind of people any longer. So now you're going to events that curate different kind of friendships. I've seen so many gals night out, or guys night out, or run clubs or swim clubs or roller skating clubs, anything like that. I've seen business networking clubs. There's a plethora, even for people that want to just do it virtually, whether it be like book clubs or drawing clubs virtually. I've seen it all. And anything that you could think of probably exists. And if for some reason you've done your research and it does not exist, create it. Create what you want to see. And that's on every level of your life, whether it's for social events or things in your community, etc. Just keep in mind that you are making sure that you are in alignment with your spirit, your heart, and your core values, okay? So I don't want to make this too long. I believe you have your assignment. I look forward to speaking with you again soon when it comes down to just making sure that you are getting the care and the support that you need and require. Once again, this session has been about getting to know yourself. We talked about grieving our old self, or grieving some of the future expectations that we had in mind, and what to do with that grief. Um, Having grief is not bad. Accept the grief, realize how you feel about it, and then move on from that. We have also spoken about what we could anticipate for our future, but most importantly, who are we right now in this moment, and how are we respecting ourselves and our core values? And how are we utilizing this time, this space, this opportunity of life and breathing and sight and hearing and tasting and feeling and all the other senses that we have as beings in this reality? How are we utilizing our right now to live our most highest self, or to live our most opportunity in this moment? And then, of course, ensuring that who we are now is in alignment with who we want to be. There's, of course, our future self who can possibly serve as a destination, but that destination doesn't have to be concrete, it could change. And allowing ourselves to have our current moment, to be our best valued self in this moment, to love on ourselves in this moment, is what's most essential. Not our past self, not our future self. We have time and space to honor those versions of ourselves, but our most priority self is who we are right now in this moment. So, again, I thank you for your session. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your consideration. And of course, I look forward to speaking with you next time. Have a good day. Hi, and thank you so much for joining us in this session. I am so happy that you were able to spend some time with us today, and I really hope personally would like to have personal sessions with me, you are more than welcome to. I have included all of the private sessions in our description box. If you are looking for private sessions, please know that I have a few different options available for you. And pretty soon we will also be starting a newsletter. So, outside of just some of these audio recordings and visual YouTube platform kind of videos, we will also have a newsletter coming out. So, please, 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 if you would love to get like an inspirational newsletter from us or hear some positivity in your day, do sign up for our newsletter. Like I said, all of the respective links will be in the description box, whether you want to book a session or sign up for our newsletter, or even if you want to participate in some of our affiliate links, that does, of course, sponsor this platform. We are always available for you, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. Have a great day, and as always, stay well.